On this day 3 of the session, we continue to learn what to expect during the legislative session. Two of the lawmakers who will help lead what happens join us. House Majority Leader, Republican Representative Chuck Efstration of Mulberry. He was first elected to the House of Representatives in 2013. And House Minority Whip, Democratic Representative Sam Park of Lawrenceville. His first election to the House was in 2016. Welcome to Lawmakers to both of you.
Great
Thanks so
to be
much.
with you.
We're going to talk about priorities. So, Leader Efstration, for a couple of years now, the Speaker has talked about giving Georgia residents a break when it comes to property taxes. Tell us if this is the year that's going to happen.
Well, thanks for having me, Donna. Affordability is the big issue this year, and our Speaker has outlined the elimination of the homestead property tax statewide, and that legislation is to be introduced this legislative session. Georgians are paying so much in property taxes as property values continue to climb, and so for their homes where they live, the elimination of that property tax would be a huge savings.
Okay, we'll get more on affordability in a moment. So talk about that tax when it comes to taxes with the Democrats.
We're certainly interested in looking forward to seeing what the Republican caucus will be proposing when it comes to property taxes. I think Leader Efstration, mentioned a key aspect that I think there needs to be more focus, which is these increased valuations, these increased property values, in which the underlying cause is the lack of housing supply. Over the past 7 to 8 years, we've seen the median average price of a home go from about $200,000 to more than $450,000. So I think while looking at property tax reform is important, we also have to do what we can to expand the supply of affordable housing.
Okay, let's move on to education. Always big at the Capitol every year during the legislative session. What are you talking about with the Republican caucus?
So childhood literacy is a major issue for this legislative session. Speaker John Burns outlined in his speech this morning that a top priority of the State House is literacy, particularly looking at the third grade reading level, when only 1/3 of kids statewide are reading proficiently at grade level. That's a major concern, particularly with the spending and focus that we've had in education. In the classroom, literacy coaches who can assist teachers in following a curriculum which is proven to be effective for those kids is so critical for the long-term development of the child, for ultimately issues like workforce development and career readiness.
Yeah, so that's a big thing with the Republican caucus, with the Democratic caucus.
With respect to education, the Democratic caucus, we really look at it from a spectrum from cradle to career. Certainly there will be bipartisan support to ensure that we're investing more in literacy, but with respect to K through 12 education, I think there's some disagreement between the two parties. Of course, over the past few years, we've had a big debate over vouchers, in which just last year, we sent $140 million toward private schools and vouchers that really, undermine especially rural school districts and their ability to teach kids. The last piece I'd mention on education is student loan debt. Georgia now ranks 3rd with the highest average student loan debt in the country. And of course, Senator Nan Orrick did an excellent job over the off session in doing a study committee on needs-based aid for higher education, in which hopefully we'll be able to move something on that issue as well.
And she'll be on the show later. So anything more on education you want to mention?
I think education is a top priority right now. I think that the ability for every child in Georgia to have a world-class education and for us to meet those standards for reading are issues that I expect will really advance this session.
Okay, let's get into health care. Let's talk about the fact that Democrats have for a while now pushed for Medicaid expansion. Do you expect to do that again?
We will be introducing additional legislation, including obtaining a fiscal note to understand the true impact and cost of full Medicaid expansion. But of course, this is not a pilot. There's more than 40 states that have expanded Medicaid. It has lowered the cost of private health insurance premiums because we're expanding the pool, lowering the risk. And, of course, right now, healthcare prices are skyrocketing, in large part because of the federal government and the Republican majority, in which, we're seeing healthcare premiums for those increasing by $1,000, $2,000. Already about 190,000 Georgians with ACA plans have fallen off. And so it's a very, very concerning situation, especially when we're looking at tax cuts that provide an average benefit of approximately $250 to $300, that's fantastic. But if your healthcare prices are going up by $1,000, $2,000, the affordability crisis continues.
So you'll expect some legislation in that area. What about with health care with your caucus?
Well, a lot of issues have been raised, a lot to unpack. I'll just say this, the affordability issue is a major focus. Accessibility and affordability in healthcare, particularly rural healthcare access, continues to be a major priority of the Georgia House. And there are many measures which we've worked to advance in that area. I know that as we're discussing the costs that Georgians are facing in these expensive times, certainly in response to the skyrocketing inflation caused by policies out of Washington, D.C. over the past few years, we're now in a position where we can I think actually address that with tax relief, with insurance premium cost relief, with the study committee that we've had this year, legislation coming, and with reducing costs for first-time home buyers to be able to afford that first home, build long-term wealth through home ownership.
I know the speaker also talked about trying to increase the workforce in the health sector,
Absolutely. So there have been new educational programs opened across the state over the past few years, training for healthcare workers so that we can meet the demand, certainly as we have a population that requires additional healthcare workers.
Okay. What else do you have on your plate?
I would say, with respect to the healthcare workforce piece, again, certainly support the speaker's focus on expanding the workforce. There have been multiple studies that say that full Medicaid expansion would create 30,000 additional healthcare jobs in the state of Georgia. So I think the best way, if that is the speaker's priority, is to, work in a bipartisan manner to expand Medicaid for Georgia.
I just have to address that. Right now, we're seeing policy out of Washington, D.C. talking about not funding commitments that were made previously to states that did expand Medicaid. Georgia is in a terrific position financially right now because of the strong fiscal leadership of Governor Brian Kemp and the Republicans in the General Assembly. We don't have a huge hole in our budget that other states are facing. We actually have reserves that make this state better prepared for any financial uncertainty which may happen in the future.
Did you want to add to that?
Absolutely. I think we have a historic surplus right now in which we're simply sitting on it rather than investing in people. I appreciate the governor's interest in building out a highway, $2 billion, in which I think ground would not be broken until 2030. How fantastic would it be if we invested $1.8 billion in the health of Georgians today, on expanding access to health care, on expanding access to child care? I think there's a lot the state of Georgia can do. But unfortunately, under the current leadership, we haven't done that yet.
Okay. Let's talk about any other priorities that we haven't talked about that you're looking at.
So tax reduction is a major focus. Over the past few years, the General Assembly has reduced the income tax by 0.2% each year, $800 million savings for Georgians, and there's a proposal to do that again this year, actually bring the income tax rate below 5%. That's in addition to the property tax relief and a real focus on reducing insurance premiums. That's healthcare insurance premiums, automobile, homeowners insurance. We've actually seen 3 carriers since the passage of legislation last year to reduce rates, and additional carriers are coming into the state. Ultimately, more competition is going to drive down costs, which will help all Georgians.
Okay. Anything else you want to add?
Data centers, I think, is something that we should certainly closely examine. The cost of data centers, I think we're providing up to $470 million in tax credits every single year, in which 70% of data centers coming in Georgia would still remain.
Okay. Unfortunately, we're going to have to make that the final word, but I thank you so much, both of you, for being here, and we're certainly going to keep up with everything.